Evening and welcome to the FPL Addicts and Esports Live FPL podcast for Game Week 2 and the preview for Game Week 3. Welcome to everyone here listening and watching, probably listening on Spotify or Apple Music or watching from YouTube, Facebook or Twitter or wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome to you. What a game week we've just come off the back of, by the way. 39 goals scored was the most scored in a single game week since the 5th and 6th of February 2011. 2 hat-tricks and 4 games with 6 or more goals scored in them. Absolutely amazing game. We've got goals going left, right, and centre. Absolutely class. But we're going to review that and we're going to preview the upcoming game week in this podcast. So make sure you stay tuned right to the end. And we've got an absolute belter on its way. Speaking of which, we've got our little head-to-head league, our classic league rather, which if you haven't joined, again, what are you doing? Get involved. The code is WNZJDI. That's WNZJDI to join the Esports Live and FPL Addicts Classic League. Just to go through the results very quickly from Game Week 2, as we've mentioned, very high scoring. Of course, Everton 5-2 winners over West Brom, including a Dominic Calvert-Lewin hat-trick. He was absolutely electrifying in the early kickoff on Saturday. Many builders as a championship fixture leads Fulham, 2 sides coming up from the second tier. 4-3, another 7-goal thriller, which we've got another one obviously to follow. Theo Costa with 2. The man I mentioned last week, Matty, got himself a goal. And obviously a couple of people met with Mitrovic in pre-season. He bagged himself a brace. Now, the one that Jack was very, very happy about, Manchester United 1, Crystal Palace 3, Wilfried Zaha on fire. Donny van der Beek got himself a debut goal. Got another away win at Old Trafford for Crystal Palace. Arsenal 2, West Ham 1. A lot of people, including myself, had a Aubameyang captain. He only had an assist. So he only had the 5 points. Lacazette and Nketiah with a late winner for the Gunners. Samson Spurs on the Sunday. I had a brilliant one with this one because I had Son, Kane and Ings. More on that later. Son 4 goals. Kane assisted all 4. And Danny Ings chipped in with a couple, including one from the penalty spot. So great result that was for Tottenham. Again, Elliot was absolutely buzzing, was messaging me all the way through this game. Tariq Lamptey had an absolute blinder. Mope had 2 inside 10 minutes. And Brighton cruised to a 3-0 win away up in the north. Chelsea had an absolute shocker, really. Timo Werner couldn't really get into the game, and Sadio Mane bagged himself a brace. Obviously, Chelsea had a missed penalty through Jorginho, which caused a lot of FPL managers a few nightmares there. Leicester had a good win over Burnley, which you always love to see. Obviously, a win over Burnley, I'll take that any day. Dennis Pratt, Harvey Barnes and James Justin got themselves on the scoreboard, including an own goal as well there from Eric Peters. And Jimmy Dunn, the 4 million differential, which might work well for a lot of people who aren't Blackburn fans. Might work well for a lot of people out there. He's got himself on the score sheet as well. And to round it all off, I've got one more game to follow after this, apologies. But Villa had a 1-0 win over Sheffield United. Henry Conter, the defender, got himself a goal. The penalty save off John Lundstrom, the hero last year, was Emi Martinez on his debut for the Villains. So good win there. And obviously a red card for John Egan, which frustrated me and a lot of other managers that had him in. He's one of the most transferred out heading into the game week. And then Wolves and Man City. Wolves were pressing. But Man City were just too good with a 3-1 win over Wolves. De Bruyne, Jesus and Foden got themselves goals there. And Raul Jimenez for the home side. So off the back of that, Elliot, what are your 3 biggest results for this weekend?
Thank you, Ollie. I think the first one that you've got to talk about was the first fixture of the game week. Everton 5, West Brom 2. It was a first goal in blue for James Rodriguez as he speared it past Johnston to the far right post. It was a lovely goal right on the cusp of half-time, which really sent the game Everton's way, in my opinion. But his first senior hat-trick from Dominic Calvert-Lewin and a hat-trick of assists also helped Everton on their way. Kieran Gibbs and Slaven Bilic both getting sent off obviously also helped them, and it was a wonder free kick from Mateus Pereira, which unfortunately didn't mean anything in the end. But that was the first highlight of the week for me. The second one, Spurs 5, Southampton 2. Harry Kane with 4 assists and a goal. Mental. Son with 4 goals. The first time he's scored 4 goals ever in his career. And Danny Ings back amongst the goals, scoring 2, as Ollie said before. 1 from the penalty spot. 1 was questionable defending from Eric Dyer as he put it past Hugo Lloris. And I'm sorry, Jack, but Crystal Palace 3, Man United 1 was my last talking point of the week. I couldn't talk about Newcastle Brighton. I couldn't bring myself to do it.
Wasn't it a shock, was it?
Wilfried Zaha with 2 goals, taking his season's tally up to 3 goals so far from 2 game weeks. Andros Townsend, however, started the scoring for the Eagles as he netted his first Premier League goal in almost a year since Palace played Norwich in September last year. Donny van der Beek, happily though for Jack, did score on his debut. I'm sure we'll be hoping it's the first of many, but that was this game week's main talking points.
Now, just to reintroduce, I guess, obviously, we've had a bit from you, Elliot. How are you today, mate?
I'm brilliant, thank you, mate. I'm actually really excited for today because obviously I think I had quite a decent game week, so I'm excited to talk about it.
Now, obviously, we've mentioned him. I hope he's had enough time to recover from that absolute shambles at Old Trafford. But Jack Gillibrand, welcome back to the podcast.
Yeah, cheers, boys. Thanks for having me. Thank God it's a new game week. That's all I can say. So we go again.
And Matt, the guru from FPL Addicts, of course. Obviously, Tottenham had an amazing win on Sunday night over here, so you must be happy with that. And on to the next week.
Absolutely buzzing about the Spurs game. Harry Kane, 4 assists and a goal. Son, 4 goals. Absolutely buzzing off that. Fantasy league-wise, we'll come to that a bit later on, but I wish I had Harry Kane on my side, to be honest.
In fact, we'll move on to that right now. Elliot, starting with you. How did you go in game week 2?
So for me, for game week 2, I actually had a very, very decent week by my standards. I scored 83 points. And as you can see, the one between the sticks there, McCarthy. I knew coming into this game week that it was going to be a bit of a rough one because I obviously knew picking 3 Spurs assets early in the pre-season. I knew game week 2, Spurs Southampton was going to be rough for me. So I sort of just had to go with whatever happens, happens. Hopefully Spurs just batter them. And thankfully they did batter them. Kane, obviously 4 goals and an assist. I don't know how many times we're going to say that, but 21 fantasy points. Son with 24 was just mental to watch. Walker-Peters luckily did get an assist for Danny Ings' first goal, which means he doesn't get 0 points like McCarthy, but he didn't do too badly himself. As Ollie was saying, the captaincy this week for him was the same as mine. I went with Aubameyang. Wish I'd gone with Kane or Son, but rather have the points than not have them at the end of the day. And then a goal for James Justin, no clean sheet, but he scored 7 points, and then a clean sheet for both Van Dijk and Trent Alexander-Arnold, capped off my 83-point game week.
So that's a great start for you. It was a shade less than myself, which we'll get onto in a minute. But Matt, the self-proclaimed guru, how did you get on?
I beat the average. The average points this week was 59. I got 66. I've come off okay. Son got me 24, so he was my highest scorer, which I was happy with being a Spurs fan. Aubameyang as my captain, which I think a lot of people had the same. Wasn't too impressed with the 10 points from him. Alexander-Arnold, clean sheet, bonus point in there. Justin with a goal. So I was happy there. Richarlison was my transfer, and I did speak a lot about Richarlison last week in the game week 1. Our first podcast for game week 2, and I'm glad he delivered with 12 points. I did take a hit with Ings though, and Ings ended up getting 11. So Richarlison coming in at 12 with an extra point. I'm happy with that. There's a few disappointing ones in there. Davies 1 point. Doherty with a 0, McCarthy with a 0. Every Spurs goal I celebrated, and then I had to remember I've got McCarthy in goal, so that did disappoint me a little bit because he wasn't making any saves, and those save points are obviously crucial. St. Maximin injury after about 25 minutes as well for the Toon, so another disappointing one, but I've got away with it. Son saved my day, 66 points. It's better than the average, and we move on to the next week. Disappointing though with Mitchell, 5 points on my bench. So that's 2 weeks in a row that I've had him on my bench. So bigger week this week. But my team, it's all about the long game with me. So hoping for a bigger point score this week than that one.
It's maybe time you move Mitchell on. I reckon on the little debate that you had with McCarthy being in net and celebrating all the goals and realising that you have McCarthy in net, I think obviously it's your team over your FPL team, so the team you support over your FPL team. So you must be happy with the 5 goals you absolutely piled on at the St Mary's there. Now, Jack, remember last week I think you made 7 extra transfers or something like that, 6 or 7 extra transfers, took a massive hit. Did it pay off?
No, it didn't.
Shock horror.
Yeah, so obviously game week 1, I finished on 49 points. As you can see on here, after an absolute overhaul, I finished 1 point less on 48. So that didn't exactly go to plan, plus the minus 20 points for that I spent. So obviously the suicide attempt did go to plan in terms of suicide. Didn't go to plan, really. So as you can see, well, obviously Justin performed. Mitchell's on there. Aubameyang captained him, obviously similar to Matt, got the 10 points. Martial, who I was raving about, to take Kane out after Kane's terrible week 1. Went to week 2 thinking Martial will step up. Kane will have a quiet one. And obviously it was the total opposite. United had a very poor day at the office. Martial, I don't know if they recorded a shot on target. So I had to rely everything on De Bruyne and Aubameyang to carry me through, and even James Justin helping out there. So I think I went from 50th in the mini league down to the relegation zones. But I think for the sake of the mini league, I've gone down to them, the depths of the league to check out who's in the league. An experience down there, see what the chat's about, and see how checking on everyone in the league. That's just play my part in there, boys.
Great positive viewpoint to have. I don't know how you can after you had Mane there game week 1 who fired away at Stamford Bridge, but it happens to the best of us. On to myself. Now, I actually had a really good game week. I had 84 points, which was slightly dampened by John Egan's red card at Villa Park. But McCarthy and that we've talked about, conceding 5 goals. Never great. Justin and Van Dijk both getting 7 points. Obviously, Justin's goal and Van Dijk clean sheet. Captain Aubameyang, like all of us did here. He had the 5 points doubled to 10, which obviously wasn't ideal. I actually messaged the little WhatsApp chat we had, and I just said after the conclusion of the Spurs-Southampton game, I just said, are we able to be frustrated after getting a game like that? And I said, I was obviously frustrated that I didn't captain Son or Ings or Kane. And then everyone just said, no, you can't be frustrated. You've had an absolute blinder. And Son and Kane were incredible for me, just watching every goal go in. I remember watching that game and just seeing Kane and Ings both have goals disallowed. And I'm just thinking, this is not going to be my day. Turned out the opposite. Kane 4 assists and a goal. Son had himself 4 goals, which is incredible. So they really carried my game week, along with a brace from Danny Ings and then Salah and Harrison Reed. Blanks, obviously, Walker Peters, I put him on my bench. He got an assist, but also conceded 5, so that kind of offsetted it a little bit. And I've moved up in the mini league. I think I was 29th last week, and I moved up to 16th. So I had a pretty good game week on that regard. So obviously we're going to move on now to Matt, your little section you've got here. Take it away.
Okay, so I'm going to go with my 5 form players currently in FPL. We've got Calvert-Lewin at Everton. He's just come off the back of a hat-trick on the weekend. So loving the look of him as a striker. Castagna from Leicester, 2 assists on the weekend, a goal and a clean sheet in game week 1. Defender from Leicester. Good fixtures coming up. This weekend, Man City away, but he's got a good set of fixtures after. Another form player, he's only played 1 game, but De Bruyne, 13 points. Really liking the look of him. And then I'm going to be going at Son, 25 points. Didn't have the best game week 1, but that game week 2, he's got to be in that 5 form players for me. And then the last one is Wilfried Zaha. Speaks for himself. Game week 1, a goal. Game week 2, double at Old Trafford. So that's my 5 form players. So we've got Calvert-Lewin as a striker, Castagna as a defender, Kevin De Bruyne in midfield, Son in midfield, and Zaha in midfield as my current 5 form players.
And have you got 5 differentials for us? 5 that maybe low ownership that are still firing on all fronts?
I've got 5 to watch for this week. A couple of them are certainly differentials, thanks, Ollie. In terms of the 5 to watch for game week 3, we've got Kane, again, striker, speaks for himself last week. We've said it a lot on the show tonight, but 4 assists and a goal. Happy with that. Son as a midfielder, got to have him this week. Newcastle at home, good fixture. Sorry, Elliot, but I think that's a
I don't doubt it. Don't worry.
Brilliant fixture for us. So Kane and Son, and I've spoke about him last week. Another one I love, especially at Anfield this weekend. Mo Salah, home to Arsenal. He's got a great home record against Arsenal. So in terms of my ones to watch, Kane, Son, Salah. The next 2, they're both to watch for this game week, but they're also more looking at the differential side. So I've got. And this is a surprise. I think this might be a surprise to quite a lot of people because he's very popular in Fantasy League. But Raheem Sterling, he's only owned by 5.4% at the moment, which is nothing for a player of that quality, albeit he's only had the 1 game week. returned an assist this week in his game against Wolves. So I'm looking at him. I think he's someone that everyone's sort of on the De Bruyne bandwagon. Although I think De Bruyne is sort of a really good long-term prospect, and he is one of my form players. In terms of differentials at 5.4%, can't look past Raheem Sterling at the moment. And another one, I'm going to go back with City again. Gabriel Jesus, 9.5 million striker. Aguero's got this long-term injury for the next couple of months, and Jesus is only owned by 2.9% of fantasy league right now. So for me, they're huge differentials from obviously a top quality side. So that's my 5 to watch for the week.
And obviously, we had a massive game week just gone with a lot of goals scored. I think, as I mentioned before, it was the bit highest scoring game week since the 5th and 6th of February 2011. That's so long ago that Bolton and Blackburn were still knocking about in the Premiership. Have you got 3 teams to watch out for that maybe scored a lot of goals there or were tight at the back?
I've got 3 teams this week to watch out for. One of them, Chelsea away to West Brom. I've not mentioned any of their players before, but West Brom, 2 games in, they've shipped a lot of goals. So Chelsea away at West Brom, I think that's a team. If you've got Chelsea assets, whether it be Werner, you've got to keep hold of them for this game week. I've seen there's a lot of fire sales with Werner, but this West Brom game, there could be goals from a Chelsea perspective. Again, I've spoke about my own team, Spurs, but home to Newcastle off the back of 5 goals. Away at Southampton, definitely one to look out for. If you've got Spurs assets this week, even if it is your Matt Doherty's or Ben Davies's in defence, keep hold of them. Bring in your Harry Kanes, bring in your Sons. And the final team to look out for, I've gone with Wolves. So Wolves are playing away at West Ham. West Ham did actually look quite promising at Arsenal, but it's 2 games, 2 defeats. They did win last night in the Carabao Cup, West Ham, but yeah, Wolves are a team. I know they lost to City, but they're quite a solid force, and they've got some pretty good players. I'm really keen on Podence in midfield at 5.5. He's made 2 assists so far, and I think Wolves away at West Ham, not too much confidence at the moment with West Ham. There's some good players to look out for there, especially your Jimenez's as well. So they're my 3 teams for the week, guys.
I think just quickly on Wolves as well, I was saying to Ollie just before we started, they have just added Nelson Semedo to their squad as well. No one knows, he probably won't be starting for them, but that also does switch it up a little bit because obviously as a sort of fullback, wingback, it'll be interesting to see what Nuno does with that. Obviously another Portuguese player, who else would sign them? It's always Wolves, but we'll just have to wait and see with that one.
So that one's just been announced just before we went to record this. It's currently 10 to 8 now, Melbourne time, as we're recording. So it's just been announced in the past hour. So a brilliant signing for Wolves, bringing in the Barcelona right back. Now, you've obviously mentioned the easy fixture, or so-called easy fixture, for Tottenham against Newcastle. Will any of those players be a captain for this coming game week?
Look, I've got a couple of Spurs players here, and I am talking about it being potentially an easier fixture, but I do need to remind myself that we did lose this game last season at home, 1-0. So in terms of captain picks from Spurs, I've gone Son, Kane, no surprises there. Another one that I always talk about, Salah, home fixture. He's really good at Anfield, and he's fixture proof. Doesn't worry me, whatever team he plays. And then my other captain choices, I'm really liking De Bruyne. And even Fernandes at United. I think away at Brighton, they didn't have a great start against Palace last week, but Fernandes is brilliant in fantasy league. And again, we spoke about it in last week's show, but there's always a chance of a penalty with VAR, and there's always a chance of a penalty with Man United. And once they get a penalty, Fernandes is the man. So Salah, Son, Kane, De Bruyne, and Fernandes are my top captain picks for this week.
And obviously, you've gone through and done your Scout 11. We'll show that on the screen if you're watching on a visual sense, but just quickly run through it for anyone listening. Run through the players.
Yeah, look, there's a couple in there. I think we've spoke about a lot tonight. Harry Kane, Son, Salah, Fernandes, De Bruyne. I've gone very heavy on midfield. Obviously, this is within the 100 million budget, so I've tried to pack the midfield with as many heavy hitters as possible. And I think any single one of them, Fernandes, Salah, De Bruyne, Son, Kane, take your pick. Any one of them can be a captain. I've got Podence in there. West Ham away, good fixture. Got the assist the other week against City. He had quite a few attempts on goal as well. So 5.5, I can see him having a pretty decent week. And then in defence, James, I've got to get a Chelsea player in there away at West Brom. Attacking fullback. Concert, he was cheap away at Fulham, set piece threat, and he's just come off 15 points. Dunn, Burnley, you won't like this one, Ollie, but at 4 million and with the injuries to Burnley centre backs, I had to put him in. It was all I could really get in there with that 100 million budget in that really expensive midfield and Harry Kane. And then Mitchell, 2 good solid game weeks so far. Home fixture, it's an inform Everton, but again, he's got potential to get forward and get those assists. And then with the goalkeeper, Lloris, Spurs at home to Newcastle. I'm feeling a clean sheet. I think Spurs and Jose Mourinho are due the first clean sheet of the season. So, yeah, Hugo Lloris in there. Not sure if we'll get too many saves out of Newcastle, though. Sorry, Elliot. But, yeah, I think he's a solid choice for a clean sheet this week.
Again, I don't doubt that in any way, shape or form. So none taken there.
Thanks, mate.
Now we're going to move on to our first guest of the podcast for this season. But first of all, we've got to bring him in, of course. I don't know if he's actually joined us just yet. Yes, he has. It's Theo, who's obviously we've got our first guest from the podcast, and he's all the way in Brazil. It's Theo Costa, who is currently 5th in our mini league. Theo, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
No worries, we're glad to have you. Now, just bring forward your teams on the screen now for anyone watching the podcast. So, how did you go this week?
Yeah, I don't know now because I'm not studying the schedule for the games, the fixtures, because this year is my first time on the Premier League Fantasy, because I played in Brazil, the fantasy game in Brazil for Brazilian National Championship, but the Premier League is my first time because I never follow Premier League. I started now because I moved to Melbourne last year, and it's very interesting this game because it's so different than the fantasy in Brazil. And now I think I will keep the same team. I will change only my captain. I will put Salah for captain, and I will try use the same team. In the game in week 4, I will use 2 transfers, and after I think middle of the first half, I will use more wild card and boost bench and triple captain.
Good stuff. So he's ended up on 56 points with obviously good players in midfield. I think he's captain Aubameyang there as well, which has got himself an assist in that one. So got a positive return. So Theo, obviously you've moved to Melbourne now, but you've said you keep following the Brazilian League. Do you support a team in that league? Have you keeping up with the Brazilian League even while over here?
In Brazilian League?
Yeah.
I follow. Yeah, I follow. I'm São Paulo fan.
Yeah, massive club, São Paulo.
Yeah, very good.
But obviously, you've said you're not going to change your team too much going forward. But did you make any transfers this week that works for you heading into this week, or?
Yeah, I think I will try change Ceballos for Hendrick, because for the game week 1, I changed Jorginho for Hendrick because I see Jorginho out for the Chelsea game, and I'm lucky because he lost a missing penalty, and but Ceballos on the bench is not good. I think I will try put Ceballos in the Hendrick place. I think Liverpool and Arsenal will have a good game, the balanced game, and I think a good game for Salah and Aubameyang. I don't know for Alexander-Arnold or Van Dijk, but I will try. I will make a risk.
You've got to make sure you take them. Obviously, in FPL, it's a high risk, high reward kind of game. But obviously, you're initially from Brazil. You've moved over to Melbourne, as mentioned. But do you still have any favourite Brazilians that currently play in the Premier League that drive you to watch the brilliant league here?
Yeah. I like Gabriel Jesus and Firmino because I'm playing striker. When I play soccer, I play striker, and I like the Firmino and the Gabriel Jesus games, and he is good players.
Brilliant stuff. Well, Theo, thank you for joining us. You're obviously flying in the FPL League. So maybe if you keep going as well as you are, we may be able to get you back on. But it's a pleasure to have you, and take care, mate.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So on to the next section of the podcast, and we're actually switching from Classic into a bit of a draft mode. So we've started a draft with FPL Addicts and Esports, the same people that are on this podcast with a few extras thrown in there. So we've got an 8-team league, and we did the draft on Monday, which is available wherever you get your podcasts, so Spotify, Apple Music, or on Facebook, Twitter, if you want to watch it visually. We recorded that on Monday, and that was published, I think, maybe yesterday. So that's up to, if you want to watch every single pick live, or live for you, you can watch that there whenever you feel like it, really. So in the league, we've got my old man Nathan Peel, former footballer himself, who played for Burnley, Sheffield United, Preston, among other clubs in there. So he's probably not the worst team, and we're probably picking him for the wooden spoon. If we're real, someone not far behind him is our man Jack Gillibrand, probably. Team, but his FPL now isn't really there. We have Birmingham fan James, who joined on the draft. He was a Birmingham fan, and he has a pretty decent team, so he'll be one to watch. Obviously, David, we've got here, big man pulling the strings on the old technical side, so he's obviously looking to power up the draft league. We've got Elliot with Shola Amiobi Kenobi, bit of a Star Wars theme and a Newcastle crossover there. So obviously, I think me and him will be battling it out up towards the top if things go well. Then we've got myself, and then Rolando, who had the auto pick because he couldn't join us that night, but he's got a decent auto pick team. But that's all because FPL did it and not himself. And we've also got Matt, obviously the guru himself, who's going to be probably favourite to take out the league. And then there's a lot of pressure on him. And if he doesn't take out the league, then basically that affirms that we don't need to listen to any of his tips and we need to go elsewhere. In terms of the fixtures, for Game Week 3 we're starting. So we're starting up this weekend. We've got James against Jack. Should be a decent game. We've got Elliot against my dad Nathan. So Elliot, if you don't win that by over 50 points, you're a fraud. Rolando and Matt coming up against one another. Should be a decent game now. Obviously, Rolando with the auto pick team against the Guru. Should be a decent clash, that one. Looking forward to seeing how that one turns out. And then I'm playing David in what should be a thriller. So if you want to go back and watch the draft podcast, it is available, again, like I say, wherever you get your podcasts, to listen to that one. Every pick we had on there, and it was an absolute joy to record, to go back and watch that. Moving on back into the classic sense. Now we've got our own classic team that we've got to go through. So we're starting with you, Elliot. What are your plans for this upcoming game week?
Obviously, I had a pretty decent game week this week, 83 points, I believe it was. So I'm pretty happy with that. So I didn't think too many changes were necessary. Fixtures were quite kind to me after the second game week. But I'm going to move on from Matt Doherty. I think all these aren't set in stone just yet, but Saiz from Wolves, they have got brilliant fixtures for the next 4 or 5 game weeks. Look at that, all the green. It's what you want. So I'm obviously going with Raul Jimenez up top as well. I think he obviously has been in pretty good form towards the start of the season, so I don't see why he would stop scoring now. And then to make funds for those two, I would have to get rid of Aubameyang for Anguissa and then make further transfers in upcoming weeks with the 4.4 million that I've got remaining in my bank. With doing this, it will require me to take a 4-point hit. I'm not 100% sure if I'm still going to be doing this, but it's looking the way that I'm going to be going for this game week. I think as of now, things might change, obviously, and I guess you'll just have to find out how I went next week on the podcast.
Great stuff. Now, Matt, obviously, you're not a fan of FPL points hits and FPL suicides, but as long as it's not as bad as Jack's, it should not be a problem. Now, on to you, Matt. How are you looking for Game Week 3?
You're spot on there, Ollie. I'm not a fan of big hits, especially not the FPL suicide of 24 points. So a 4-point hit's okay. I can manage that. But, when you're going 8 points, 12 points or anything like that, then it's just not worth it. But anyway, in terms of my team, my squad, so I built my squad initially for the sort of aiming towards that 5 to 10 weeks just to build up, and I'm still very, very heavy in defence with your Dohertys, Ben Davies, Alexander Arnold. So I've got a lot of money still tied in defence, which kind of leaves me very, very light up front. So I like a 4-5-1 formation. Happy to stick with Richarlison, Salah, Son. I'm not too happy with Havertz at the moment, but with West Brom away, I'm hoping that he, gets 90 minutes under his belt and can get off the mark with a goal and an assist. So I'm not going to be hitting the wild card. My my aim's to get rid of Aubameyang, so he's obviously one of my premium choices, but I'm really, really sold on Manchester City this week. So, we've got De Bruyne in here. He's just come off 13 points. Price rise to 11.6. He is owned by 38% of teams, though. So, he's one of those players I've really got to have him at some stage this season. It's going to be a toss-up between him and Sterling for me. As we mentioned earlier, Sterling now, since we discussed earlier, his ownership's actually gone up now to 5.5%. He's 11.5, so he's that 0.1 less than De Bruyne. I just get this feeling with Sterling in these next couple of game weeks. He does like to play at home, so Leicester at home, he always gets burst of goals. So I'm just feeling a couple of goals this weekend from Sterling. And then the up-and-coming fixtures after that look quite good. Got some green there with Leeds. Arsenal at home, who City always seem to beat quite convincingly. West Ham away, a bit of green. Some tough games there, so it's probably going to be around that point there where I might look to make the transition to De Bruyne. So, yeah, for now, it's going to be a last-minute decision. It's definitely Aubameyang out, and it's going to be one of the Man City boys, no doubt about it. So that's going to be my lineup this weekend, or my transfer, sorry.
Great stuff. Jack, on to you now. Obviously, we've mentioned that FPL suicide duel over that now. You won't be doing the same again, surely not.
Oh, I've got a surprise. No, I haven't, lads. All good. I've got, obviously, I'm trying to keep my head down now and just try and focus on recovery and try and get a bit of consistency. I have jumped on the Calvert-Lewin bandwagon. So Martial's been rotated out, so it's my third striker in 3 weeks. Aubameyang, I've kept faith with him. Obviously, I'm just going to change my captain around. Probably going to captain Salah in there. We'll see how Calvert-Lewin hopefully goes. But De Bruyne or Salah for captain. I think, as Matt said, with the Man City one, I think they could obviously run riot. De Bruyne is obviously in form. Willian, I would have liked to have got out this week for the Pep Roulette kind of style that Arteta's probably going to play, but obviously with transfers, I don't really want to change any more points. So my only transfer this week, Calvert-Lewin in with Martial heading out the door.
Just quickly, I'm planning on making 2 transfers, so I've not actually made them yet, so that's why I'm on the transfer screen. My hand was forced a little bit with John Egan's red card, so I'm looking to bring in Roman Saiz from Wolves. Obviously, we've mentioned how good their fixtures are, but just to quickly run over that, again, a lot of green there. West Ham away, Fulham at home, Leeds away, Newcastle at home, Crystal Palace at home, and even Leicester away isn't too bad a fixture for Wolves. And then you go Southampton and Arsenal away. So even down to the sort of game week 10 mark before the Liverpool game, I think I can see some real value in Saiz. I am also considering Connor Cody, which if I do that, I might be able, or go someone cheaper even, I might be able to hold Aubameyang at the minute. I've got him out to De Bruyne like a lot of other people have. Great start to his season. Obviously, as we've mentioned, but I've got him in for Aubameyang, although I'm not sure if I'm going to pull the trigger there. I might give Aubameyang 1 more week because obviously De Bruyne is a lot cheaper than Aubameyang, 0.4 million at the time of recording. So I might go from Egan down just to give myself a little more breathing room just in case I want to hold Aubameyang for this week. But at this rate, it's going to be Saiz in for Egan and De Bruyne in for Aubameyang as my 2 free transfers after I rolled over last week. So now, just to wrap up, just quickly, obviously it was a great game week last week, and obviously if we get another one like that to follow, we're going to be some absolute firepower. Elliot, obviously happy with your changes. Do you reckon you're actually going to get more points than me this week or not?
What's 1-1 now? I only lost out by 1 point. I am higher than you in the league. I will remind you of that. So just keep it on the down low for a minute. I'm hoping I can. As I said before, I'm not too sure with the point hit because I think you look at Doherty and Saiz has already got to make up 2 extra points on Doherty if I make that point hit, and I'm just not sure if he will. I think, as much as it pains me to say it, Doherty at home to Newcastle, a team that in just attacking wise haven't been brilliant recently. So I'm not too sure on that one, but I think, as I was saying, Aubameyang, he's described a bit as a modern day Drogba these days. He always turns up against the big team, so I'm not sure about getting rid of him, but I think I will pull the trigger on that and get him in because I'm quite keen on Jimenez, as we were saying, for his fixtures. I'm more interested in getting the Wolves attacker in than Saiz. So it's going to be between the two of them, I think. And I don't know if I'll take a point hit. But yeah, I'm confident I can get more points than you this week, Ollie, if that's what you want to hear.
Well then, bring it on. Obviously, I had one more point than him last week, but if he takes the points hit, I'm back on top of the league. So there's just a little precursor for you in case you want to maybe avoid that. So that's the end of this week's podcast for Game Week 2 and in preparation for Game Week 3. Go back and watch the draft, which we recorded a few days ago. It's an absolutely brilliant podcast. We had a laugh recording that one. So go back and have a watch of that. And obviously, good luck with your teams and hopefully rise up the FPL Addicts and Esports Live League. For now, though, take care and we'll see you next week.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this live esports fixture here.